Hello, storytellers. Welcome to Bound by Words. If we haven't met yet, my name is Madie. I am a freelance editor and fantasy storyteller. And today we have a little bit more of a chatty video. I have something weighing on my heart. I think we need more animals in writing and storytelling, and I think that there are several reasons why they can really change and impact a story for the better. And I have a few reasons that I think this, but if this is a topic that interests you and you're excited to sit and chat about it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing while you're down there. I post writing-related videos twice a week. I'm also accepting manuscripts for this winter if you need a sample edit or anything like that. My website for my editing business and the Instagram and everything is down below. If you have questions, Instagram's probably the best place to get a hold of me. But all of that boring stuff aside, I am very passionate about this topic today, and that is animals. And there are two things that really brought this about. I read a really great book series that had animals depicted in a way that honestly struck every one of my heartstrings, and I loved it. It's called The Kinder Poison. I definitely recommend it. It was very well written. It takes place in a setting where there are several different types of magic that you can have, and one of them is the ability to hear animals' thoughts. And something I really loved about this is that the author actually wrote it in a way where animals think differently. They don't think in, sentences the way we do, but they think maybe in like one word or a term or something like that. So I thought that was just really well done. But the second reason I became very passionate about this is that I received a book box that was animal companion themed, and you can sort of tell that some of the items were a little forced. Like, it was a little bit hard to get some YA fantasy animal companions and animal themed goodies in that box, and it sort of hurt my heart a little bit because I think that there's a lot of potential there when it comes to storytelling. So in today's mini chatty rant, I just wanted to share some reasons why I think including more animals, both as animal companions and just animals in your world, can be a really powerful additive to storytelling in whatever book you're writing. Not necessarily that every story can be improved by, adding an animal, but there are a lot of ways I think that adding an animal can really be used as a tool to help with world building and character development and a bunch of cool stuff. That being said, while I was getting ready to film this video, I did do like a quick Google search of books with animals in them, and a lot of things popped up, but almost nothing I recognized. Like, Aragon was probably one of the few titles I recognized, and it's been a while since that has come out, so if you have a book that you read that has animals in it that you love it, or that was just really touching, or that you think was really well written, please put it in the comments below so that we can all reap the benefits of that. The first reason I think animals can add a lot to a story and to world building is because you can learn a lot about a person by the way they treat animals. Whether it is a pet or, an animal they find that is injured or an animal that is attacking them, the way that they treat and approach that animal and the way that they're thinking about it can really tell you a lot about a character in general. If somebody has, a dog and they just like kick it constantly every time they're mad, well then you know that they don't really care about the dog, and you know that they have sort of a rougher mentality. If somebody has an animal and they dote on it all the time and they're always talking to it in a baby voice and they like spoil it and it's like fat and lazy, then you know that one, that person's probably more gentle and soft, but also that they would probably do a lot for that animal, that it means a lot to them. So there are a few different ways I think you can play with this, but just in general, I think the idea of showcasing the way a character or a person interacts with or around an animal, whether the animal is friendly or, is attacking them, I think that can just show a lot about the way the character thinks and views the world around them. So that is, just the tip of the iceberg. I have several more reasons why I think animals could really improve some stories. But not only showing how characters interact with the animals, I think including animals in general can really lend to some world building. Every country and area has flora and fauna. They all have certain plants and animals that are native to the area, that thrive, that struggle. We have animals that migrate, that do really well in some areas and not in other areas. So it's silly that so many books just don't have animals. Now, in some books, creatures are kind of popular. I remember several years ago when I read Throne of Glass for the first time, one of the things that I loved about that was how original the creatures were. They were things that I wanted to like learn more about, but when I would search them, the only thing I'd be able to find is like the wiki fandom page from the book. So you can really go either way with are the things that walk on this earth, are they really like monsters, or are they just creatures who have animal instincts and aren't necessarily like sentient? And I actually think that is really what I'm talking about more here. There are a lot of stories where the people are adventurers and they're traveling or they're hunters and they don't encounter a lot of animals, or the only animals they encounter are ones that are super relevant to like the plot of the story. Like, we're looking for this animal, so this is the animal we found kind of thing. And, you know, I do think that you shouldn't write anything in your story that doesn't improve your story, but including animals to a certain degree will make your world a little bit more realistic. So I'm not saying do like a 2-page expose on watching an animal like eat in like a little field in the forest and then moving on for no reason. That wouldn't really help. But getting a little peek of what kind of animals are around and how well they're doing, I think could really lend to some of the world building, especially if your characters are outside or traveling a lot. I just think that could be something really beneficial. There are some stories I know that have animals, like I recently read Enchantment of Ravens, where like the ravens are really important, but the ravens are like a symbol where when they pop up, it has certain meaning. It's not necessarily like the ravens play a part in the story, and I think that's totally fine and valid too. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I know of where the animals have symbols. I'm thinking a lot of like Shadow and Bone, like the antlers that they're trying to find. They're looking for this specific creature. But something as little as if all of the little critters are running in one direction, that means there's something big and scary in the other direction. There are a few ways I think you can use this to just heighten world building. Like environmental storytelling is what I sort of think of it as. That was a little bit jumbly, but you get what I'm trying to say. The next way that I think that it can really improve storytelling is the diversity you have between, are they real creatures, are they myth-based creatures, or are they made-up creatures? You know, you can't tell me that you don't look at a turtle duck and think, oh my god, that thing is so cute. Totally made up, cross between real world things. So you don't have to have a never-ending amount of creativity to put creatures and animals in your world. It could be something as a cat or dog or wolf companion. It could be something like from mythology that you have either taken straight from one specific source, straight from one culture, or maybe you have taken the base of something and adapted it. Or it could just be something that you have totally made up and created yourself. I will say that this world has so many creatures in it that I think that it's impossible to think that you have seen them all. When I was living in Japan, I went to one of the zoos and I was mind blown by some of the animals there that I had never heard of, never seen, and it was just odd. Like I distinctly remember sitting in the zoo looking at, it was a fossa. I'm pretty sure it's Fossa, but it's like it's definitely a feline 4-legged animal that has the build of like a panther or a cheetah, but is much smaller, like maybe half the size between like a house cat and one of those bigger cats. And this thing was just so agile, and I remember it had really long legs and it was very active. Like if you go to the zoo here, like our tigers and lions, they're active sometimes, but they sleep most of the time. But this thing was just like moving constantly, and it was so playful and it was so fun to watch. And I just stood there in awe. Like I have never heard of this thing, and it has a very distinct face that I don't recall ever seeing. So you could definitely do a little bit of digging, or even just, you know, visit zoos whenever you're traveling places to find different animals that you maybe haven't encountered. You know, I wouldn't go out and think like, I'm gonna go to the zoo and find something I've never seen before. I mean, you might, and I'd keep your mind open there, like me and the fossa thing. But there is a lot of opportunity there for inspiration on how you can adapt maybe a modern or real world animal to fit into your story better. But I think there's a good foundation there for building an animal or even a character in your book off of some of the traits of those animals that, you know, we don't see or encounter as often. The fourth reason why I think animals can improve many stories, and I think we need more of them, is that it can drastically affect the tension and pacing of a story. We are all familiar with that age-old cliche scene where our characters are hiding in the woods for something, and something big, bad, and scary comes out and wants to attack them or eat them or chase them or whatever. I feel like that one's a little bit overused, but it's the idea that the introduction of an animal who isn't really sentient, that is just running on instincts, changed the pacing like that, made it a lot faster. Now we're really invested on, are our characters going to survive? If your character finds like a small little creature that's hurt and it just needs help, maybe that'll slow down the pacing because the whole story stops because this character needs to, you know, tend to this animal. And that goes back to the first thing, where we can really see how characters interact with animals around them. But with attention and pacing, I feel like there's a lot here that you can unpack, because there are a lot of different ways that it can increase or decrease pacing. If it's a friendly animal or an aggressive animal, if it's an animal they don't know your character particularly, or if it's an animal your character is really attached to. If your character has an animal companion and it suddenly gets stolen, of course your character is going to be in a rage, freaking out on how they can retrieve it, or if it is injured, they might want to seek revenge, or maybe your character sees another character with an animal companion and gets this deep depressive jealousy that really affects their character. Maybe that's the character growth, maybe that's the start of their villain era, who knows? There's just a lot of things that you can do here, and I think that not a lot of them have been explored to their fullest potential. Like I said, we all are familiar with the hiding in the woods getting attacked by something, but why aren't there more cliche animal tropes? And if you do think of a cliche animal trope, then leave it in the comments below and let's see if anybody else has also sort of read or gotten tired of that one particularly. The fifth and last, but maybe the most important reason that we need more animals in books and storytelling in general, or writing in general, is because more people will relate. I feel like there is this like instant relatability whenever animals get involved, whether you're an animal person or not. There is like the instant ability to recognize that connection or to recognize a response. If a character comes over and they're extremely allergic to cats and all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to touch anything, I'm really annoyed because I'm here because my eyes are going to start itching. That's something a lot of people can like instantly relate to. If somebody finds an animal and they pick it up and they're like, oh my god, how could you ever not love this thing? That's something a lot of people can relate to as well. In general, there's sort of like the disdain versus the protective versus the I don't want to be involved with that animal, it's bigger than me. Those are all things that like generally most people just know the feeling and can relate even if they haven't experienced it firsthand. Like I don't have allergies and I have plenty of cats. But I understand and I empathize whenever people do have allergies because it's so common in the real world. And having an attachment to a pet is also so common, which is why it's easy to sort of see and respect and get emotionally attached to animals that a protagonist could be attached to. There are a lot of ways to really grab somebody's heart instantly. Like, I'm watching a movie and I always tell people, like, there will be an animal there and I'm like, if this dog dies, I'm not interested in seeing the way the movie ends. I don't care anymore. Like, I feel like I have that response kind of often. I feel like I've never actually, like, shut a movie off in rage like that, but it's something that immediately like gets to the core of my being, and I know that I'm not the only one. So think about how you relate to animals, whether you love them or hate them, whether you have pets or you want to have a pet but can't, you know, how people in your life relate to animals. Are any of those things that could help your world building, your character development, or even just one point of your story can help your readers relate a little bit more? I think that there is so much potential there, and I look forward to reading more books in the future with animals. I'm definitely going to give a few of those ones that I found on Google a try. Never really heard of them, honestly. Some of them don't have very many ratings, so I am digging for a hidden gem here, and I really hope that you guys leave some book recommendations for myself and other writers who are curious in the comments, but you can also send me things on Instagram. I want to read more books with animals. I want to read more writing and storytelling with animals, and let me know if you're writing a book now that currently has animals in it, because I will share that on my Instagram, because it's just something I'm currently very excited about. But with that, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing. I post writing related content twice a week.